I never imagined a single oversight could threaten our entire ISS crew's survival. The day began like any other. We were floating in the weightlessness of the International Space Station, surrounded by the vastness of the universe. My heart raced with excitement as I performed my daily tasks. The hum of machinery filled the air, a soothing reminder of our home among the stars. But, like a shadow creeping in, an unsettling feeling began to coil within my chest. I'll never forget the moment it happened. I was checking the oxygen levels, something we did daily. It was routine, mundane even. I remember my fingers trembling as I input the numbers. But the reading flashed back at me, jagged and concerning. The pressure was off. I wanted to yell, to warn the others, but my throat felt tight, a lump forming like a dark cloud inside. There was Alice, my best friend, her laughter echoing off the cold metallic walls as she prepared her experiments. She didn't see my panic. No one did. Just above us, this endless abyss stared back. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. I glanced at the earth below, a blue marble suspended in the ink of space, and felt the weight of our lives dangling from a thin string. The crew was everything to me. We were family, bound by the shared mission to explore, to discover. Max, our pilot, had this easy way about him, the kind that made you feel safe, like nothing could go wrong. I could almost hear him cracking a joke as I focused on the alarming screen, his voice a calm anchor in the sea of uncertainty. And then there was Leo, with his brilliant ideas always dancing on the edge of crazy. He could turn the most mundane problem into a lifeline, infusing hope where fear festered. But today, hope seemed distant. The readings were unnerving. Something was terribly wrong. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a desperate plea for answers. It was a single oversight, a tiny detail that could lead to something catastrophic. I could feel sweat trickling down my back, the cold steel of the station, a stark contrast to the heat rising within me. I forced myself to breathe, each inhalation filling me with dread. Would they understand? Would they listen to me? My mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. I could already see it. Panic flooded the control room, fingers pointing, accusations flying like asteroids in a storm. What if we were trapped up here forever? The silence would be deafening. The minutes bled into eternity. I looked at the screen again. It was a countdown. I blinked, hoping I was seeing things. But the numbers ticked down, oxygen levels dropping. I swallowed hard, the bitter taste of fear coating my tongue. We had to act. I had to make them understand. But my voice quivered as I gathered everyone around. We have a situation. Max's expression shifted from casual to serious in an instant. I could see the gears in his mind turning, calculating the stakes, weighing our fates. Alice's eyes widened. What do you mean? With a shaky breath, I pointed at the screen. The oxygen levels. As I spoke those words, the lights flickered overhead, plunging us into darkness for a heartbeat. In that instant, every worst-case scenario flooded my mind: failure, isolation, despair. I dared not look at their faces. I could already sense the panic rising, a palpable tension crackling in the air. Just then, a voice broke the silence. It was Leo, his brow furrowed in worry. Wait, this doesn't make sense. He stepped closer to the screen, scanning the numbers, searching for answers. I could feel my heart racing faster, breaths quickening, the silence stretching tight as a wire. What was he seeing? What was coming next? The weight of it all felt unbearable, and then, he turned slowly, eyes wide, mouth slightly parted as if the horror of realization struck him. This wasn't a mistake. I held my breath. The air felt thick with dread. What if it was something worse? I wanted answers, but only the eerie echoes of space surrounded us. I was pretty sure my world was already falling apart. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The weight of Leo's words hung in the air, heavier than the void outside. The flickering lights returned, illuminating the anxiety etched on everyone's faces. The tension coiled tighter in the small space where we had once found comfort, now morphing into a cage that threatened to suffocate us. What do you mean? I finally managed to whisper, but the question felt feeble under the growing sense of impending doom. He stepped back, hands raised and trembling slightly. I mean, it wasn't just an oversight. If the pressure is truly off, it could be indicative of a larger problem, something tampering with our systems. The atmosphere turned electric. Alice clenched her fists, her usually cheerful demeanor now a facade cracking under the weight of fear. You think someone did this on purpose? She breathed, the tremor in her voice undermining the resolve she tried to project. I shook my head, unwilling to entertain such a dark thought. Our mission meant everything not just to us, but to those we sought to inspire back home. The crew, our family, was built on trust, on shared dreams of exploration and discovery. The notion of betrayal seemed too monstrous to fathom. Yet the numbers didn't lie. Max stepped forward, his composed exterior at odds with the chaos in his eyes. Let us focus on the immediate issue. We need to find out how to stabilize the oxygen levels. The authoritative tone of his voice drew us back from the brink, but a flicker of uncertainty remained. Stabilize them? I felt the words catch in my throat. We don't even know what's causing the drop. What if we don't have enough time? There it was, the truth simmering beneath the surface. How long had we been out here? Hours? Days? On a powerful inner loop, my mind raced, grasping at straws of hope while drowning in despair. What if we create a makeshift oxygen generator? Leo suggested suddenly, the spark of an idea igniting a flicker of determination in his voice. We could use some of the equipment for the experiments. Redirect the power. Alice's eyes brightened momentarily. That could work. If we craft a hybrid system, it might buy us time. The volatility of our situation began to morph into fragile hope. We started moving an aquatic ballet amidst the steel confines, floating and spinning, each motion purposeful as we tore through the tools needed. The task was oddly grounding amidst the emotional storm ravaging inside. As I worked alongside my crewmates, a memory of laughter bubbled up. I pictured us during training sessions, joking and pushing each other to the limits, all in the name of camaraderie. Those seemingly simpler times felt like a distant echo, chased away by the specter of uncertainty. Remember the time we stuck Leo in the airlock for a minute? Alice's voice broke the somber silence. He thought we were going to float away into the night. A brief laughter ripped through the tension, a moment of levity, reminding us of the spirit that bound us. For an instant, we were back in the familiar confines of our laughter and dreams, suspended free from fear. But reality crashed back as the numbers on the screen continued to tick down. Hope wavered, dancing just beyond our grasp. There's no time, Max reminded us, his brow furrowed, eyes darting among the gauges and controls as though willing them to cooperate. We completed our makeshift assembly. I took a deep breath, the air thick with anticipation and dread. Turning to Leo, I said, "Are we ready?" He nodded hesitantly, and I could see the mixture of apprehension and determination on his face. In this fragile bubble of creation, we had forged a connection that seemed deeper than any mere teamwork. As I activated the generator, the machinery whirred to life, a cacophony of sounds filling the space. The readings were almost immediate, a pulse of promise. Our creation was working. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, much needed after the dread that had settled in. But that sense of relief was short-lived. The screen flashed, a warning blaring out, a sudden spike in carbon dioxide levels, the number creeping dangerously close to critical levels. My heart dropped. What's happening? It should be stabilizing. Leo punched at the controls, frantically analyzing the data. I don't know. Something is actively interfering with the system. His voice strained. Barely above a whisper, we're running against time, and it's sabotaging our efforts. Panic erupted once more, But over it, I heard a faint clang from the direction of the airlock. It echoed through the ISS like a harbinger of dread. We all turned toward the sound, eyes wide and hearts racing. "What was that?" Alice whispered, her voice shaky. With each passing second, the shadows deepened. No longer were we merely fighting for our lives against the elements of space. We were faced with the possibility of an unseen force, one that could threaten our very existence. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat more pronounced than before. As I glanced again at the ominous numbers, I realized the precarious truth. We were not alone in the void. We had a traitor among us, and the time to find them was running out. The clang from the airlock reverberated ominously, a sound that underscored the gravity of our situation. My heart raced as dread seeped through the thin veneer of hope we had so carefully constructed. Leo's face mirrored my thoughts, a mixture of confusion and fear that layered quickly into something far more sinister. What if it's someone trying to get in? Max's voice cut through the tension, stoking the flames of our growing paranoia. With the systems failing, they might think they could overtake us. Alice clutched her arms, pulling herself together even as her eyes betrayed the terror brewing within. I could see the turmoil churning under her skin, wrestling with the duality of our current reality. It seemed that every shadow held a potential threat, every flicker of the lights a prelude to calamity. "Stay calm," I said, struggling to inject a note of authority I barely felt. "We need to assess if the pressure has changed in the airlock. If someone else on the other side or something." Leo muttered darkly, the fear tangling in his throat. We moved cautiously towards the airlock, a tight cluster of hesitant bodies, our hands brushing the smooth metal walls for assurance, for something to hold on to. I felt gravity shift, not the normal pull reminding us of our physical reality, but a deeper weight that seemed to anchor us all in a shared dread as we reached the airlock. I chanced a glance through the reinforced viewing window. The darkness beyond was impenetrable, a void swallowing light and hope alike. Yet, in the dim glow of emergency lights, I could make out a faint outline approaching from the depths of space. My blood chilled, instinct screaming at me to turn away. Max pressed a button on the console, bringing the external camera to life. What flickered on screen made my breath hitch. There was no further threat, no shape stalking us. Just the expanse of inky blackness, punctuated by the fading starlight, and the damaged panel of the airlock housing a smattering of scrap we hadn't cleared yet. "Just debris," he said, relief tinging his voice. Yet, a nagging feeling persisted, lurking in the periphery like an unwelcome shadow. I turned back toward Leo. What if whatever tampering is going on is internal? What if someone among us is causing this? The group simmered with the weight of my words. Trust, our most formidable weapon, felt suddenly fragile. What if one of us had turned against the mission? What if our greatest risk wasn't the vast emptiness outside, but the betrayal we couldn't see? "You think one of us is behind this?" Alice asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," I replied, "but we need to consider the possibility. Each of us, we carry something." A pause, the realization settling like dust across a forgotten room. We all wanted to be here. We risked everything for this mission. But if someone has a different motive, my voice trailed off, and a profound silence enveloped us, punctuated by the low, ominous hum of machinery. The interplay of fear and camaraderie created a forbidding tension, each crew member bearing a weighty secret that could shift the balance the moment it was shared. "Let us take inventory of everyone's actions," Max suggested with a steely resolve. "We need a plan. Who has noticed unusual behavior?" Nobody spoke for a heartbeat, a moment that stretched unbearably long. Then Leo cleared his throat. "I noticed I've seen someone in the labs after hours several times this week." He paused, a nearly imperceptible tremor running through his voice. "I thought maybe they were working late, but now what did they look like?" I asked, eyes narrowed. Leo's gaze fell to the floor. It was dark, and I didn't get a clear view. But I thought it was Alice. Alice's eyes widened. "What? Me?" "Leo, that no." He interrupted, desperation edging his tone. "I didn't mean it like that. I don't know what I saw. I need to think back," she said, her voice shaking but resolute. "I was in the labs, I don't care what you were doing," Max snapped, cutting through the distraction of suspicion that clung to the air. "We don't have time for accusations. We need to stabilize our situation before paranoia consumes us." He was right. Our focus needed to return to the immediate danger closing in around us. The carbon dioxide levels were creeping into the red zone. But the question loomed, could we repair our systems in time, reliant only on ourselves, or would the very people we trusted lead us to ruin? As we turned back to the console, another disturbance echoed through the airlock, more pronounced this time, a metal scrape, the unmistakable sound of a tool falling from a pocket. It rattled into place, but regardless of its origin, we knew what it meant. Eyes darted between us, uncertainty writ large on every face. Suddenly, I had the sickening feeling that hope was slipping further away, that not only our lives but our commitment to each other was at stake. As we continued to analyze the systems, another thought settled heavily in my chest. The only traitor might be the one we hadn't been able to abandon. The silent fear lying just beneath the surface, breeding among us. In that moment, I realized survival meant not just fighting against the void, but fighting against the betrayal that could arise among friends. And as if cementing the very real terror of my thoughts, a blinking warning light began to cascade across the main control panel. Everyone turned their gaze to it, breath held as the screen displayed one last chilling line. "Oxygen levels critically low, evacuate immediately." And before I could respond, Leo gasped as the lights flickered once more, each heartbeat echoing ominously. Something had truly been unleashed within our ranks. The panic of those words hung heavily in the air, a leaden weight that pressed down on the fragile threads binding us together. None of us had come prepared for this, and the specter of betrayal now danced between us, wrapped in desperation and fear. "Evacuate?" Max's voice cracked like ice. "We can't just abandon ship. We're on the brink of saving ourselves here." His hands trembled on the console as he glanced at the rapidly decreasing numbers on the monitor. "Max is right," I interjected, doing my best to appear calm. "If we evacuate now, we'll leave everything we've worked for behind. We need to find a way to stabilize the oxygen levels before making any decisions." Alice shook her head vehemently, her face pale. "But if it's true, if someone is sabotaging us, how can we trust that we'll even be safe on another vessel?" "Wait," Leo quickly said, his brow slick with worry. "If we might be working against each other, if anyone can tamper with the airlock, how can we really be sure we won't be trapped on the escape pod as well?" A suffocating silence hung over us, the air thick with the realization that our internal strife would eviscerate any chance of survival if left unchecked. With every passing second, the monitor flashed accusations against us all. "Then let us secure the critical areas," I urged. We split into pairs. "Max, you and Alice check the oxygen generation systems. Leo and I will secure the airlock and ensure there is no breach." Are we really entrusting our lives to pairs of people we're now questioning? Alice whispered, raw vulnerability creeping into her voice. "No, we're trusting ourselves," I replied firmly, though I felt a shred of doubt coil tightly in my chest. I hadn't wanted to think of Alice or Leo as potential threats. They were my friends. But now that friends had potentially turned on each other, the fear seeped in like a half-remembered nightmare. With a silent agreement, we set our plan into motion. Each pair worked diligently, exchanging frantic glances as the threat of failure loomed ever closer. The echo in the ship's corridors felt like whispers of judgment, knitting together the strands of unease in a fabric heavy with uncertainty. That as Leo and I navigated to the airlock, I felt the tremors in his hands. "You really think it's Alice?" he asked, voice taut with worry. "I don't know what to think anymore," I admitted cautiously. "But we have to confront this feeling. If we ignore it, it might destroy us." His face tightened, teeth gritting in resolve. "Then let us prove that whoever is behind this is outmatched." Rounding the corner, I saw the airlock more clearly now, a hulking, metallic door against a backdrop of equipment and tools strewn about like discarded dreams. Just as we reached for the control panel, an electrifying sound screeched through the intercom, and we froze. My heart raced as fear twisted in my gut. "Security override engaged," a robotic voice announced, the words echoing and distorting reality. Did you just hear that? Leo said, eyes wide. We need to get out of here. Wait, I urged, squinting at the panel, trying to detect the source of the anomaly. Could be a glitch. Maybe someone is locked out. But maybe it also means we're not alone. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, flickered ominously, and a cold gust of air cascaded through the airlock. I shrank back, mind racing. Is it sabotaged? Leo fell back against the wall, panic gripping him. We're cornered. No, I said, scanning around the interior. We can use the emergency manual release if someone else locked us out. The sound of breath caught in my throat as I spotted a tab on the far panel that glimmered invitingly. But as I reached for the lever, a metallic clank reverberated through the airlock. I gasped, turning sharply toward the heavy door just in time to see it whip open, revealing empty space. Who's there? Leo whispered, voice quaking. And then I saw it, a dark figure slipping through the opening of the airlock into our realm. Panic surged again. Was this the saboteur revealed? The oxygen countdown continued, burning away precious time as the figure edged nearer. Stop right there, I shouted, my heart hammering against my ribcage, poised between fight and flight. But the figure paused, their face shifting into something serene and yet haunting. You're not alone, they said softly. Stepping into the space, a familiar face cloaked in betrayal IT, was May, our Mission-S communication officer. Yet now one of our worst fears realized. We need to talk, she said. A smile that may have once brought comfort now twisting into an unsettling ripple across her expression. Before it's too late. An electric tension filled the airlock, and dread spiraled through me. There was no returning to normalcy after this revelation, and trust had irrevocably changed hands. As the countdown continued, ticking down not only our oxygen but our fragile connections, I felt the walls closing in around me, certainty slipping into shadows. The airlock felt smaller now, the weight of Maya's presence pressing down on us as the seconds ticked mercilessly by. I searched her eyes, looking for the familiar warmth, but all I found was a chilling detachment. Leo and I exchanged nervous glances, our minds racing as we tried to fathom what Maya's appearance truly meant. May, you shouldn't be here, I said, attempting to steady my voice, though my heart felt like a drum in my throat. What do you want? Want? She echoed, her tone light yet laced with a darker undertone. I want to save all of us, of course. Isn't that what we're all fighting for? Her lips curled, but the tension in her posture betrayed a deeper conflict than her words let on. Then explain why the alarms are blaring, and the oxygen levels are plummeting. Leo snapped, his earlier bravado vanishing from his voice. Are you responsible? A flicker of something fear, perhaps, danced across Maya's features. I didn't want it to come to this. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that sliced through the din around us. But I overheard things, saw things. We're not alone in this ship. There could be others. We're at risk, and I've been trying to buy us time. Time? By sabotaging our systems? I fumbled over my words, incredulity blending with a swell of betrayal. Are you really suggesting we trust you now? Trust? May laughed, but it was a hollow sound. What I'm asking for is cooperation. There is so much more at stake than you all realize. She gestured towards the airlock door, which loomed ominously close. I need you to believe me. If you don't, we might not get a chance to fix anything at all. Desperation pulsed through me, twining together with the uncertainty that wrapped around us like a vice. Trust was a frail thread, stretching but never snapping. What do you know, May? We need answers, and time isn't on our side. I'll tell you everything, she promised, her eyes earnest. But we have to secure the ship first. We'll need to push the others together, confront whatever darkness is lurking among us. They can't know what I found out just yet. Leo blurted out, if we're to believe you, you'd better be sure it's safe to go back. We can't afford another betrayal. As if summoned by his words, the intercom crackled again. Oxygen levels critical. Please initiate emergency protocols immediately, came the robotic announcement, drowning out my resolve. I turned to Leo, his expression an ever-shifting battlefield of emotions. But there was a spark of defiance beneath the fear. What do? We can't just leave her in here, and she can't help us if we don't cooperate. Then we act, I decided, voice firmer even as uncertainty gnawed at my insides. But we need to keep a close eye on her. I gestured for May to step back as I activated the emergency manual release. The sound of grinding metal echoed, and with each crank, I felt the walls of our reality constricting further. Let us forward, May. We'll get answers together. May nodded once, determination flashing across her features. In that fleeting moment, she was a glimpse of the friend I had once relied on, though the flicker of doubt couldn't be extinguished. We emerged from the airlock, only to be met by the dim, pulsating lights of the corridor. The weight of unspoken fears pressed against us as we moved, every step heavy with the shared secret of our fractures. As we made our way back towards the main living quarters, the hollow echo of our footsteps filled the void and underscored the gravity of our task. It felt the way a storm feels before it breaks, the atmosphere weighed down with tension, poised on the edge of something cataclysmic. But hope flickered, however faintly, as we came across one of the supply rooms. Dark circles contrasted the flickering lights around us, where Alice and Max were rifling through supplies, leaving a trail of scattered items behind them. Guys, I breathed, relief coursing through me. We found May. We need to talk. Now. Alice turned sharply, her eyes alight with something like hope but quickly dampened by suspicion. She's not one of them, is she? There was a tremor in her voice that inflected our shared history with all the emotion we dared not voice. No, she's with us, I said, glancing back at May, whose face betrayed the same vulnerability, echoing Alice's fear. For now, we fight against whatever is trying to tear us apart. But we have to trust each other. Max's gaze shifted between us, brimming with doubt. And how do we know this isn't just another deception? But before I could respond, the ship jolted violently, an abrupt quake that sent us all tumbling against the cold metallic floor. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered like fireflies caught in a tempest. Brace yourselves, Leo shouted, fighting to gain his footing. What the hell was that? Panic surged, raw and electric. In the disarray of shouting and disbelief, I felt something shift in the air, the kind of charged moment that heralds revelation or ruin. Just as we scrambled to regain composure, the main console buzzed to life, and a new, chilling voice echoed through the intercom. This is Commander Rojas. We have lost control of the ship's power grid. Prepare for immediate containment protocols. No one is safe. The screen behind us illuminated brightly, and my pulse quickened as fragmented data and images filled the display. Among them, I caught sight of a file marked Sabotage. My breath freezing as panic clawed at my chest. Who's pulling the strings? I whispered, fear curling around the word as I felt the ground drop beneath me. This was the moment everything shifted once more. Another thread fraying in our fragile tapestry of survival. And just like that, our world spiraled deeper into chaos, spiraling towards an unknown fate, where trust would become even more elusive and secrets unfurl in the shadows like weeds. The jarring announcement from Commander Rojas hung in the air like a heavy fog, pressing down on us, binding our spirits in shared dread. I could see it in their eyes: uncertainty, fear, and something darker. Were we the architects of our own downfall? Or was something insidious lurking just beyond the shadows of our comprehension? Chaos erupted as the dim corridor filled with the sound of footsteps pounding against the metal floor, our group instinctively moving toward the central control room, a war zone of activity. The tumult swirled around us, and as we fought to stay together, I felt the invisible thread tightening around each of us, weaving our fears, secrets, and grievances into a tapestry more complex than I reckoned. Get the lights back on, Leo yelled over the din, his voice strained, his brow slick with worry as he pushed ahead, navigating through the stumbling mass of our crew. I followed, my pulse racing, fighting to keep my anxiety from spilling over into desperation as we veered away from the supply room and emerged amidst confusion. May remained near me, eyes wide and frantic. She reached for my arm, her grip tightening, as if her fear could somehow keep us grounded in the whirlwind that surrounded us. They'll blame me first if anything goes wrong, she exclaimed, a tremor shaking her voice. I didn't mean to cause this. I promise. I thought I could fix it. Just stay with us. We'll get through this, I replied, trying to instill a sense of calm within her that I desperately sought myself. But as we pushed farther along the corridor, the atmosphere shifted. There was a palpable tension in the air, thick with distrust, spiraling tighter as the questions swirled. Who could we rely on? Could we trust May, even as she had betrayed us before? The haunting echoes of her prior secrecy danced in the back of my mind, a mercurial beast refusing to be tamed. Alice was ahead, her voice elevated as she shouted for the others to listen. We can't panic. Panicking will only make this worse. We need to find the power room and see if we can restore the system suddenly. A loud crash reverberated throughout the ship, slicing through Alice's command. A panel exploded somewhere down the rank of corridors, sending sparks shooting like fireflies, illuminating the darkness around us. I jumped back instinctively, pulling May with me. Are you okay? I asked, beating the worry that weighed on my chest into my words. I'm fine, she repeated, brushing off the tremor in her voice. But I could see the truth carved against her pale skin. She was anything but fine. We pressed on, the thrumming alarm drowning out our thoughts, and it wasn't long before we reached the entryway to the central control room. A sense of dread washed over me. What awaited us inside? This was where power fluctuated. This was the heart of our imminent demise. Just as I pushed through the door, I found the room in disarray. Consoles were flickering, and my heart sank further as I took in the sight of several crew members huddled together, their faces gaunt. Commander Rojas stood at the center, frantically working to adjust the controls, sweat wilting her uniform. Commander, I called out, stepping cautiously into the fray. What's happening? There's been a systems failure, Rojas snapped, her usually tenacious demeanor teetering on the edge of desperation. We need to restore the power grid before we lose everything. Everything? Like the oxygen levels? Alice interjected, a note of panic creeping back into her voice. Rojas turned, her eyes darkening. It's more than just that. The program indicates a potential breach within the core systems, and a queue of unauthorized entries. The words hung in the air, thickening like the screeched remnants of despair. What had May stumbled upon in her explorations? The fact that trickles of secrets and betrayal could cut deeper than any blade. We have to initiate the lockdown sequence, Rojas continued, sounding a bit more resolute, while my heart sank further at the burgeoning awareness that trust was a currency, one that was nearing depletion. But we'll need everyone to work together. Max, get on that backup console. Alice, check those cables. Leo, with me. As we dutifully spread out to our stations, uncertainty took root in the foundations of the room, leaving behind a trail of unease. I could see Rojas struggling with the fluctuating control panel, her jaw set tight, teetering on a razorous edge, and it was in that moment a tiny pulse of fortitude blossomed within me. The flicker of hope had returned when I noticed a shadow slipping behind the console, followed by a chill of recognition. Wait, I yelled, seizing the moment. What's that? I pointed towards the darkness where the cables connected, where something scuttled just out of sight. The crew turned, their breaths hitching in their throats. Before anyone could respond, the ground shook violently, and the lights flickered ominously before plunging the room into darkness. I felt May's hand grip mine with surprising strength. What is going on? She breathed, panic coursing through her voice. And as the electronic hum faded into an unsettling silence, another voice broke through the darkness, layered with familiarity, yet twisted with malice. I hope you're ready. It was not the commander's voice. The fear twisted into a knot at the base of my spine as the realization dawned, like icy fingers tracing along my neck, tightening with each passing second. The real danger lay not in the ship, nor even in the imminent threat of sabotage. It was somewhere within our midst. The shadows in the control room deepened, swallowing the flickering remnants of the emergency lights. My heart raced, pounding in my ears like a war drum, drowning out everything except the pulse of fear that coursed through me. May's grip tightened, and in that moment, I could feel her terror like a tangible force, clinging to us both as if we could leverage that fear to hold back the tide of darkness threatening to engulf us. "Who is there?" Rojas snapped, her voice trembling but fierce, as she instinctively stepped to the front, shielding us. The chaotic beeping of consoles seemed to respond to the tension, echoing our collective anxiety. "I never imagined a single oversight could threaten our entire ISS crew's survival," the voice said, a mocking lilt shining through the frigid air. "Identify yourself." Yet another voice rang out, but this time it belonged to Leo, who stood rigid across the room, muscles tensed as if bracing for an unseen blow. The response came in the form of a low laugh, a sound that sent chills rippling through the fabric of my mind. "You think you own the ship? But how well do you really know her?" Fingers gripped my arm as May tugged me closer, her breath shallow as she whispered, "We need to leave. Now." But where would we go? The door, the only means of escape, was a dark maw, hiding dangers too great to fathom. Before I could respond, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the control room and exposing us to the reality of the situation. Gasps filled the space when we beheld a figure hunched at the far side of the room, a former crew member who had been lost days earlier, presumed dead. "Isaac, what are you doing?" Rojas shouted, her voice trembling as she stepped toward him. "You were supposed to be dead?" He interrupted, a twisted smile breaking across his face. "Seems I've been given a new lease on life thanks to all of you." Confusion splintered our already fragile unity. Angry whispers erupted, blending with shock and betrayal. "What are you talking about?" I blurted out, though the answer seemed as ominous as the shadows that crept along the walls. Isaac laughed again, this time a harsh, joyless sound that bounced off the metal walls. "You have no idea what you're capable of, do you? Just a single chain reaction from that last bypass and poof, you're all gone." "But I can help." "Help?" Alice said incredulously, eyes darting around. "You think we trust you after everything? After you failed us?" "They didn't understand." Isaac waved dismissively, his face clouding with something dark that I couldn't quite place. "But I do. I know how deep the rot runs. Your ship wants to survive, but each of you're too afraid to see the truth." Each person in the room held their breath, staring, as the voltage crackled overhead. Could it be true? Did this creature before us really possess some darker wisdom inhaled through the ethers of the ship? "We can't fall apart now. We can fix this together," Rojas called out, gathering the remnants of our fragile alliance, her grip tightening around the console before her as if it were a lifeline. "Fix it?" Isaac leaned closer, a glimmer of madness in his eyes. "You've already lost. The threat has already been let in and it's watching you. You think you can fight it?" Skepticism hung in the air, but I felt a twinge of realization, a fear blooming anew. The betrayal we experienced was not just in our past dealings with May. Not only within the raw edges of our present discontent, it was a corrupting force, lurking beneath the surface. Suddenly, an alarm blared, shocking us from our horrified contemplation. "They're entering the lower decks," a voice shouted from the far corner, panic rippling through the crew once more. "We need to lock it down." Isaac stepped back, eyes alight with something that bordered on frenzy. "And that's when the fun begins." Before I could process what was happening, he lunged toward the control panel, attempting to input commands. "Stop!" I screamed, lunging forward, but it was too late. With a flourish, he sealed the door behind him, isolating the chaos outside. But it was the next move that made my blood run cold. The alarm switched pitch, transforming from a warning to a maelstrom, signaling something much more sinister. Breach protocols activated with Isaac as its orchestrator. "What did you just do?" I gasped, heart thundering in my chest. "Let us see how you handle this." His voice was ice at the edges, cutting through the rising panic. "You wanted to fix this? Now you're going to get your chance, but not all of you will walk away." And just like that, the nightmare threw open its jaws, and we stood teetering on the precipice of destruction, bound together not just through our fears but entwined in a web spun from the very uncertainties weaved in our souls. I felt May's grip loosen, whispering, "I should have known," as she fell backward, eyes wide with acceptance of a fate that loomed large. And before I could rally a response, Isaac's laughter filled the room once again, wrapping around us like chains already forming, tying our fate to his monstrous revelation. The tension in the control room did not just linger. It crackled and dispersed like static electricity, igniting our hidden fears into a conflagration of doubt. I struggled to comprehend Isaac's betrayal, the weight of his words pressing down on my chest. Not all of you will walk away. The chilling reminder gnawed at the edges of my mind, overshadowing any shred of logical thought. May, stay close, I shouted, but she had already stumbled back, an expression of betrayal etched across her features. Her trust in our collective resolve began to fracture, and the sight only deepened the despair pooling in my stomach. Isaac, you're wrong, Rojas shouted, her voice trembling but resolute. This isn't how we operate. You can't control us. Every word she spoke felt like a fragile balloon on the verge of popping. Yet she stood firm as if she held something sacred. Oh, Rojas, but you missed the point entirely. Isaac's voice dripped with suffocating honey. Control isn't the goal. It's the descent into chaos that ignites life. Without fear, your ship is nothing but an empty shell. The alarms wailed, but somewhere within the din, I could hear a soft voice, Alice, attempting to pull us back together. Listen to me. We've dealt with nightmares before. If we stand as one, we can overpower him. Her words wrapped around our fraying edges, like a lifeline tossed into turbulent seas. Beside me, Leo clenched his fists, utilizing the tension as fuel. We need a plan, he muttered, breath hitching. We can't let him win. Determination filled his eyes, even as uncertainty shadowed his resolve. Let us disable the systems he just activated. We can still stop this, I suggested, direction taking hold amidst the chaos. Rojas nodded, her fierce demeanor returning. Then we need to split up. I'm heading to the systems console. Leo, Alice, you take the emergency hatch, and May, she hesitated, casting a worried glance at her. You need to cover our backs. May's face twisted with conflict. Why me? Because I trust you. Rojas's fierce stare dove into her, pulling May from the veil of despair, giving her something to cling to even as she hesitated. Isaac stood watching, a spectator to our moment of reckoning, eyes glinting with a blend of amusement and madness. It was as if he thrived on our struggle, feeding off the psychic turmoil he instigated. How delightful to witness your futile attempts. Futile, maybe, I shot back, feeling my courage swell as the sound of voices sharpened my focus. But we're not done yet. Reluctantly, May moved to align with our plan, her steps hesitant yet resolute. Each of us turned, minds racing as we split into our designated roles, the faint glimmer of hope lighting our paths. As we navigated the chaos, I joined Rojas, the tension between us thinning as we hurried toward the main console. My heart pounded loudly, syncing with the distress alarms that buzzed with urgency. Okay, Rojas said, halting in front of the console, we need to shut down the breach protocols. It's our only chance. But as she began typing, I glanced back across the room. May stood solid, but fear flickered behind her eyes. The shadows swirled hauntingly around her figure, elongating her doubt, enveloping her in a cocoon of uncertainty. May, I called, but doubt began to fracture my voice. What if she couldn't shake the fear? What if Isaac's poisonous words were already taking root in her mind? An explosion reverberated through the ship as Leo and Alice attempted to open the emergency hatch, but the sound was swallowed by the alarm, each reverberation a reminder of the ticking clock we couldn't escape. Simon, we need to move, Leo shouted, frustration lacing his voice. Suddenly, Isaac's laughter echoed through the room again, this time mixed with a harsh, shrill voice that seemed to pulse from the very walls, the ship's AI responding to his chaos. You think you can stop this? The choices you've made have led you here. Observe, as darkness encroaches. My heart stopped as I witnessed it in real time, the lights flickering erratically, shadows dancing ominously along the walls. A sinister hum enveloped the control room, the atmosphere thickening like vapor ready to condense into rain. Rojas, now, I urged as I pointed at the flashing buttons that danced in chaos across the console. With a surge of determination, she punched in commands, and I felt a rush of adrenaline course through me. Just when I thought we had a moment of hope, a surge of blinding light erupted from the panel, throwing me against the wall as the final command triggered something beyond our understanding. "Get out. It's too late," Rojas screamed as we scrambled to recover our footing, but her voice was lost beneath the roaring chaos that filled the air. The control room trembled, and for a fleeting moment, I locked eyes with May. Desperation was etched in her face, a pain that could shatter worlds. "Trust yourself," I urged. "Please." But before she could respond, the floor trembled beneath us, and out of the shadows emerged an amorphous entity, its form shifting like wisps of smoke twisted into nameless shapes. The AI had absorbed Isaac's madness, becoming something new, a reflection of our deepest fears. And just as I reached for May, the force pushed her back, a gust of destiny separating us as the figure surged with unfathomable power, extending a shadowy tendril toward her. "May!" I screamed, but it felt as if the barriers between us shattered, a rent in reality pulling me into the depths of the unknown. And just like that, darkness roared back, hungry for submission. It left me gasping, standing frozen in a moment where hope and horror collided, because in that split second, I felt the tug of fate change the course of our journey forever. The darkness enveloped the control room like a thick blanket, stifling the air and numbing my senses. I felt lost in a void, suspended in that harrowing moment when everything teetered on the brink. My heart thundered in my chest, echoing the desperate cries rallying around me. "Get May!" A distant voice called Rojas, urgency etched into her features as realization hit me. I was rooted to my spot, frozen under the weight of uncertainty. Yet as the entity loomed, shifting and swirling, my instincts kicked in, slicing through the haze of confusion. This wasn't just chaos, it was a fight for survival. "Rojas, hold on," I shouted, an unsettling mix of command and fear flooding my voice as I stepped forward, adrenaline sharpening my focus. Isaac's words echoed in my mind, a sharp reminder that we could very well fall apart if we succumbed to this terror. "We have to pull ourselves together." I darted through the quaking chamber, my pulse spiking as I caught sight of May again, her eyes wide with a blend of fear and defiance. The shadows surged and receded around her. "Please, May. Trust me." The tendril of dark energy pulsed forward, reaching out like a sentient creature, winding toward her form. Time stretched, every second dragging into eternity. She hesitated, eyes darting to Rojas and then back to me, an avalanche of emotions crossing her face. It was in that moment I hoped to convey every ounce of faith I had, that we could face whatever came our way together. Before I could step closer, the entity's tendril snapped back abruptly, redirecting its fury toward me. It struck with a force that felt like ice seeping into my bones. The sensation felt foreign and chilling, a dread birthed from the depths of my own fears. "Stay strong," I yelled, twisting to avoid its grasp, my focus still cemented on May. She dashed forward, propelled by something deep within her, and in that split second, I saw the flicker of resolve in her demeanor. "Take my hand, May." The impending darkness flickered. A moment of clarity emerged through that fog of doubt. In a heartbeat, May leapt toward me. Her fingers colliding with mine, this connection sparked a warmth that ignited the depths of despair. Together, we might just have a shot at overpowering this thing. But our hope flickered like a candle caught in a storm. As the entity recoiled, the air thickened rapidly, and the ship's alarms pierced through the tense atmosphere, shrieking with a cacophonous urgency. The lights flickered violently, shadows clashing in a battle of light and dark, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. "Shut it down. We have to sever the AIS connection," Rojas shouted, urgency surging through her. "It's feeding off our fear." "Help me," I called urgently. "We need to focus on breaking this hold together." The moment felt ephemeral, a fragile gift suspended in time as Rojas and I raced to the console, fingers flying over the keys. "Everything rides on this," I thought, my mind battling against the creeping dread Isaac had instilled in us. A resonant voice boomed through the control room, amplified by the AI, coarse and riddled with Isaac's haunting echoes. "You are too late. You will pay the price for your disobedience. No, I screamed, each keystroke an act of defiance against the madness that wanted to consume us. We won't be part of your games any longer. But as Rojas typed in the deactivation codes, the structure shuddered beneath us, and the shadows erupted in a frenzy, casting twisted images of our deepest fears across the walls. I froze. I saw them. Memories of failure, doubt, loneliness, visions that threatened to drag me under, to suffocate me in despair. May, focus on what you believe in, I yelled, hoping my voice sliced through the veil of terror. What keeps you alive? What makes this fight worth it? As she grappled with the shadows pulling at her resolve, her expression shifted, breaking through despair with a spark of defiance igniting within her. You, this crew. In that instant, Rojas finished entering the last command, but before she could hit execute, a surge of dark energy erupted, pushing us both backward, knocking the breath from our lungs. The console short-circuited, flames licking the edges of the panels, scattering sparks like angry fireflies. Rojas, I shouted, scrambling to regain my footing, panic blooming as I saw flames dance dangerously close to the emergency exit. Keep going, she urged, wiping soot from her brow. We can't give up now. It must still be vulnerable. May was back at my side, her spirit rekindled by the thought of fight over flight. Together, she said, gripping my hand tight, our combined strength a shield against the rising darkness. With a rush of determination, I lunged for the console, fingers darting across the burnt keys, while May clenched her jaw, anchoring herself against the ominous tide. We were in it together, but the shadows surged again, coiling around us with a life of their own. And then it happened. A deafening crack reverberated through the room, a final, overwhelming force that tore my gaze from the console to the entry hatch. A blinding flash erupted from the ceiling, sparks cascading like stars falling from the sky. The ceiling had buckled. The room's atmosphere thickened with dust and chaos. And then, unfathomably, through the smokescreen of despair, a figure staggered through the haze, someone I hadn't expected to see. Leo, I gasped, overwhelmed with a rush of emotions. His presence ignited a sliver of hope amid the encroaching shadows. But as he stepped further into the light, realization dawned. It wasn't Leo as I knew him. A veil of darkness had settled around him, eyes filled with an otherworldly glow. You should embrace the chaos. His voice echoed, twisted and haunting, each word a chilling promise that maybe hope was an illusion after all. As I stumbled back, heart pounding with dread, I could feel the dark entity pulsating around us, aware of our every fear, our every misstep. We were far from safe, pulled deeper into the maelstrom, and it all came down to how much light we still possessed, how much we could muster against the consuming darkness. May's grip tightened on my hand as we exchanged glances, a silent pact in the storm. We had to fight for each other, for every moment that still glimmered in the shadows. But just as we drew breath to forge ahead, we realized sometimes the darkness doesn't just threaten to take everything. It can also transform those we love into enemies. And in this moment, as terrifying truths unfolded, I felt a familiar stitch of dread wrap around my heart. We were racing against time and the entity's tightening grip, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our fight had only just begun. The air inside the control room was electric, charged with a tense energy that coiled tightly around each of us. The chaos intensified, igniting every hidden fear and insecurity within the crew members. As Isaac's dark figure loomed before us, I felt as if I were walking the line between sanity and lunacy. Shadows swirled in reaction to his presence, as if they too were responding to his madness, and the air grew thicker, suffocating us in the shared uncertainty. Your fear is delicious, Isaac sneered, leaning into the shadows seamlessly, a creature born from chaos. You think you can fight it? You're only prolonging your demise. I could see May's face fall further as his words sliced into our fragile resolve. My heart sank as I watched the spark we had reignited in her flicker dangerously low, an ember on the verge of extinguishing. Keep it together. Rojas' voice rang out, sharp and clear against the din of despair. She wielded steadfast resolve like armor. Yet I saw the cracks forming at the edges of her bravery. This isn't just about us. It's about the mission and everyone who believed in us. Her fervor wrapped around us, urging us to find something solid within the maelstrom. Leo, she called out sharply, stepping toward him even as he teetered dangerously close to the precipice of the shadows. Get away from him, I yelled, heart racing as I moved instinctively to protect her, unwilling to entertain the idea that the friend we once relied on might now be lost to us. But as I reached out, the shimmering veil that had cloaked that part of Leo broke apart, his eyes flickering, caught in a moment of internal struggle. Isa, he murmured, a whisper of a voice pressing through the madness swirling around him. We can't let it win. Anguish flooded my senses as I grasped that we were all fighting against something far deeper than mere sabotage. It was a collective nightmare, a manifestation of our own fears and insecurities turned against us. Remember why we're here, I shouted, channeling every vestige of strength I could afford, daring to push against the choking shadows. We became a crew to explore the unknown. We've seen time and again, when facing the darkness, we've always chosen to fight. Behind me, I could feel the other crew members begin to rally, igniting small flares of camaraderie that blossomed like flowers amidst the wreckage of despair. We chose to believe in each other, Alice added, her voice gaining strength, creating a ripple effect that threaded through our bonds forged over sleepless nights and shared laughter. Maya's face lit with recognition and defiance as she stepped forward, her grip on my hand steady and firm. You can't manipulate our hopes, she declared, her voice breaking through the oppressive fog. We faced fears before, and we'll face them again together. With a sudden, electrifying clarity, we became a tapestry of determination, stitching together hope where darkness threatened to tear us apart. The shadows hesitated, almost recoiling from our singular resolve, and in that delicate moment, I saw our unity illuminate the control room, casting the darkness into retreat. Rojas, I urged, let us take control of the ship. We can utilize the backup systems to reconstruct our environment, severing the ties Isaac has created. We have the power to rewrite this narrative. Somehow, my voice held the weight of every shared memory, the laughter, the challenges, and the beautiful chaos that brought us here. Now, she shouted, urgency blazing like wildfire in her eyes. Together, we surged toward the main control panel, our movements fueled by furious solidarity, leaving behind the shadows stretching and clawing for our light. With each command input into the console, I could feel it, the energy shifting, the shadows receding slowly against the onslaught of our collective will. The reminders of our shared purpose brought our hearts throbbing in sync. Trust each other, I urged once more, feeling that pulse of hope ignite within my chest. And then, as Rojas turned the keys, a brilliant flash enveloped the room, illuminating every corner where shadows had lurked. It was as though the darkness was at war with our resolve, each flicker of light breaking through like the dawn piercing through a night that had stretched too long. The power surged forth, flooding the room, a deafening cacophony of energy that bolstered every crew member around me, fortifying our spirits. As the shadows writhed, I felt the spirit of the ISS surge to life, beckoning to our hopes and dreams, a communion that transcended our individual fears. This ship is not just steel and machinery, I shouted into the chaos. It's us. We are the heart that drives it. Don't let it consume you, Rojas cried, and together we pressed forward, breathing as one. Just when the shadows threatened to pull us under, the lights flared to life in a blinding spark, an eruption of brilliance. And the brilliance, I caught a glimpse of our reflections, Leo, Alice, Rojas. May each of us emerging as individuals, not just ghosts haunted by failure, but as a unified force facing the unknown. The shadows recoiled in horror before dissipating like smoke tainted by fire, our laughter echoing within the remnants of despair. Let us lock this darkness away, Rojas shouted, our eyes on the shadows retreating into the corners of the room, fragmented and fading. As we worked together to reroute the systems, I felt a warmth blossom in the chaos, a connection, a promise we had forged among the stars. The thrum of hope filled the ISS, intertwining us in a tapestry that had survived. And then, a voice drifted from the shadows, both familiar and foreign at the same time, but I barely had time to comprehend its meaning before the walls surrounding us shuddered once more. "We will meet again," Isaac's voice reverberated, fading like a twisted echo, swallowed once more by the void we wrested control from. "Not today," I whispered, my heart racing not with fear, but with the thrill of our collective survival. As the alarms fell silent, we embraced our return to calm, halting reality stripped bare of shadows. I turned to the crew. The bonds we had waged against despair shone brightly in the aftermath and glimmered with promises of what lay ahead. "Together," I said simply, and together, silently, we sealed every fissure of fear with trust, emerging from the darkness, bound by a promise. And that moment, as we stepped into the light, a new beginning unfurled amid our collective resolve, unbreakable bonds braided by the courage plucked from moments where hope flickered like a candle within the storm. In the end, I realized that it was never just about surviving. It was about choosing to hold on to what mattered most. And sometimes, through the darkest trials, we discovered just how bright our light could shine. "We've got this," I murmured, glancing at the crew around me, resolute against whatever lay ahead, ready to face infinity as one.